Okay, we're calling this meeting to order, the meeting of the Library Board Finance Committee.
Should do attendance.
Yeah, we should do attendance. Mike Karolewicz.
Here.
Terry Barris.
Here.
Mike Karolewicz.
Here.
Terry Barris.
Here.
And I am here, Alan Alexandrovich, and Jennifer is here. We have no visitors. I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting of June 23rd, 2021.
I'll say because I wasn't here. Also move.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh.
Good. Any discussion?
Yeah, I mean, it was a wonderful meeting. Order of business, review of the revised capital improvement balance fund 5-year projection. That what I put together?
Yeah.
This is the one I put
That's
together.
the one that we saw at the
meeting.
Yeah.
So if you look at page
3 here.
Yeah, it's got draft version at the top.
Mm-hmm.
I redid it. So the next page, original draft, was the one that I had presented to the library board last year. I've since gone through this document, which is the contract for the. All the stuff that's going to be done at the library.
Oh.
By
All the work?
IRS.
Yeah.
And I inputted that in here. So what you see in here is what we, that's what we're paying this year for the repairs. Now I had IRS, the project manager Bill from IRS, do a walkthrough to show him some additional, the patio and the stuff out front that we were talking about. And while Peggy was here, I talked to her about why that EIFS, what they had, the 23,000 they had versus the, 3,000 that they're actually doing. And I asked her about that, and she said that instead of doing all the repairs at once, they prioritize what needs to be done right away, and then there'll be huge project. They'll be having a project every year.
So the stuff that we see in 23, 24, and so on, it's just like our chunk of it. Ballpark number. Nothing hard tied to it.
Yeah.
Just a placeholder.
We sealants.
Well, I added that into the EIFS repair, so I put in.
So the 45,000 is now 2,048. That wasn't a substantially up. Okay. Obviously, because I didn't understand that. I made no changes to that 5-year projection that I put together.
Yeah.
Now, when we say library fund, is that the fund balance? Okay.
Yep.
Did you make any of those changes? In this draft?
Not in yours.
5-year draft. Okay. So that remains to be done.
Now I can add more. There's 40,000 additional, dollars that I budgeted as a ballpark.
Well, let's have a thing associated with it very similar to, we would like people to donate to the library. What for? Well, just because. Let's have something other than just have a number out there. I think it's going to make it a lot easier for us to manage, especially since in the minutes from the Jennifer, you're going to hear from Peggy about concerns about draining the fund balance in the event that it's needed to fund capital projects at the library. I mean, that's the purpose of it. And we thought we had close to $500,000.
We do, and that was kind of the city's point, was we've got that money. It makes sense to have us use it up and then
for our projects, yeah,
for our
sure.
projects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, except I don't think the city's going out and borrowing money. Didn't you also make the comment that we're in really solid financial condition?
Oh, she did. But I mean, I guess I'm talking about not only this year, but
Oh, but future years.
now not only this year, but
Well, but in future years.
now I mean, they will probably have to borrow for the parking lot next. That's going to be a $400,000+.
I
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know what their
kind of hard,
finances are.
kind of
but-
hard to say. You know
Yeah.
what? If things well managed, it's like if things well managed, it's like if you're going to be having projects going forward, you make sure you got the revenue to cover it.
Right? You raise property taxes,
Yeah,
bring it in.
yeah, exactly.
400,000 spread out among all of us is not a great deal of money.
Mm-hmm. We're doing other lots as well. Okay. So, what anything else we should be concerned about here with
did-
this?
Yeah, I mean, if you look, I did go over a little bit. I had originally budgeted like 35,000 for furniture, but the cost of the furniture had gone up. We even chairs, study chairs, to bring the cost down, but still, I went over just a little bit with furniture.
Okay.
But
But it's a planned thing anyway, right?
Mhm.
So this is just something that's got to. If the furniture is X number of years old, you have to assume that. Okay,
Mhm.
it's passed nicely on that.
um,
And when you're talking about, you went over a little bit. Are we talking 10%?
1,600.
Okay, it's maybe 10%. Okay. So, any other discussion on?
The idea is to have capital projects and spend that money out of fund balance.
Mhm.
So we have library materials for $15,000, and that happens to be under capital outlays where we have a total of 90,000. Outlays where we have a total of 90,000. So what is going into that account in our budget?
Well, this
It makes up
would
90,000.
just be additional. This would just be to
What is library materials?
books, DVD, audio, visual, any books, DVD, audio, visual, any materials that get, things that get checked out.
Are we going over this year?
No.
Did we go over last year?
No. But
The reason why I'm
This
asking
year-
is that would we anticipate having to go up by this much? Because
well,
the reason for we anticipate having to go up by this much, because
well,
the reason for having it in here would be we can't fund it through our regular annual budget.
right, and we may not be able to because our personnel costs ate in. Because this year I did have to cut 10,000 out of materials to help fund the personnel increases. If you look at our budget,
It's a good side note to make
Mhm.
over here in anticipation of
Mhm.
increased personnel costs.
Because if you look at our library materials, I budgeted 85,000. The year before that, we had budgeted 95,000.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
we did pull a little bit out of.
The reason
Fund
I'm bringing
balance.
is bringing spend down fund balance. We have library materials at 90,000,
Mhm.
and we're only taking 15 out of fund balance. Why don't we take 90,000 out of fund balance? If you want to spend it down, spend it down. Get it over.
I guess I want to do it in a prudent way, but I mean that's the board's. It's the board's
What-
money.
No,
Yeah.
it's kind of like the city's money. Because if they really want us to spend it down,
They want to plan to spend it down. You know.
and you do it by these capital outlays, which are a total of 140,000,
This year, 137 ish.
137-ish. Okay, it was 140,000, 15. Right.
Yeah.
So 140,000, 590,000 for library improvement or library material.
Hmm.
And what if they want $500,000 out? Spend that on fund balance.
Well, we will increasingly.
Then the amount of money they give us is going to have to be increased.
And
You're just
we
taking-
haven't had that happen for years.
Years.
They haven't given us more money.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. It's been like 2 years. It's been the same, but there was an increase prior to
There were a
that.
few.
Not to,
Yeah.
but
And I guess that's the point. Is like, yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll spend some of it down, but let's kind of see how things go forward. And if the tea leaves say, I guess we ought to go ahead and do this because it doesn't look like we're going to be getting anything more going forward. Because the increases that we have had haven't been a whole. The increases that we have had haven't been a whole heck of a lot.
They haven't been enough to cover personnel
No.
increases.
no,
And that's a guarantee, right? The
Yeah.
personnel increases are the things that we are, for lack of a better term, stuck with because of
We are.
the way
And
that is the biggest part of one of
it's
the
the
bigger parts
biggest
of our budget.
part, and I tell you,
the way
and
That is the biggest part of one of
it's
the
the
bigger parts
biggest
of our budget.
part, and I tell you, we are pretty lean.
Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
I mean,
so
Maureen's
we can
working
anticipate
yeah.
that increase going forward every year, and then what we want to do for our salary increases that the city does. So, yeah, somewhere in the middle.
Well, there was or is this idea that some capital expend. Well, this is probably true more generally, but that there'd be capital expenditures that could save on personnel costs.
Self-check, that kind of thing. Is
Right,
that what you're
or if,
thinking?
no, it requires some modeling, but the idea of this thing where there's the movement toward a single central
Yeah.
desk, if it can be
Oh,
done.
that, yeah,
So you might get by with one less person on the ship, something like that.
possibly. We
Oh.
still have to have 4 people in the building.
Okay.
Sick.
Okay.
But I mean, some people say, well, sorter. Sorter, you just spend a lot on capital and you're not spending as much on personnel, but
That sounds like we're borderline on that. There's other places where it would definitely be a saver.
maybe an additional self-check in the children's area, prominently, maybe. But we seem to have capped out at like 55%. I mean, our self-check percentages have not really budged much.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you got a certain percentage that are willing to use self-checks.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you got a certain percentage that are willing to use self-checks.
Right,
then you
and
just
I think
got
there's
those-
also going to be a little bit of psychology where kids like the idea of walking up and checking out their own books as a sense of pride,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
now the self-check kind of there's a little bit of the face-to-face thing about that, and if your experience is said, pretty much 55% is what you're going to get. There's no sense arguing with facts, right? Now, if you see that it starts, well, then you do it.
Well, you can,
because it
you
makes
can
sense.
force a card machine on the self-check so that they can't pay fines and do that. And then maybe sometimes you just don't have a person up front. That kind of forces them. But I'm not there yet. I'm not sure that's good customer service.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
There yet. I'm not sure that's good customer service.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Because if somebody has a problem, what do they do?
Well, you come
They-
to check out a book,
you
and
have a
I
little
got
bell
this email says that my library card's expired.
Mhm.
Right, and all you have to do is Murphy's Law. Right, and all you have to do is Murphy's Law says you're going to have 5 of those, like all at one time, and then you're going to have a bunch of pissed off people. Right.
Yep.
Right. As soon as you think you're being smart. Yeah. So you know what?
I still think a face there is good.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh!
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why Walmart has greeters.
They'd like to do that.
Mhm.
Well,
There's value.
have we done something, or has anybody done something like you come up to check out your book and the librarian says, if you'd like, I can show you how to check these out.
Oh yeah,
yourself."
we have done that
Okay.
years ago. Gosh,
Well, maybe it's wearing off. So,
6-7 years. We made a really big push. Like I said, there's adopters of the self-checks, and then there are those that are like never going to use it, or rarely will use it.
A lot of times people just need to be shown.
And we have done an issue, they're real quick to say, let me help you. Or if there's a line, we've had people go around and say, let me show you how to use the self-check, But it's still it stays around that 55% mark, which is still so over half of our CERC is being done at 5% mark, which is still so over half of our CERC is being done at self-check.
Yeah.
So in the very beginning, it was only 25%.
So before we get off the capital project sheet, is there some way that we want to?
So in the very beginning, it was only 25%.
So before we get off the capital project sheet, is there some way that we want to integrate that thing into the conversation? Because this is kind of like new territory. Before it was just like the budget thing, and we had this thing on the budget. Here's our fund balance, and we never really planned spending out of it. And what I'm thinking is the conversation that we have with the city, see what good stewards we are, give us more money, type of thing. Or plan such and such a time, so as the paths cross where fund balance goes down and these costs going up, at some point they're going to intersect, and mark your calendar for 2027. We're going to come to you for significant money because there's not going to be anything here. You have to spend money on and it's
Depends
so
on
I
what
think that can be
they
helpful.
depends on what they're looking at. Because remember we had that conversation about they want the fund balance to equal about 20% of your operating.
Isn't that everybody else? We really don't have a problem until we get down to $100,000.
Yes. So when they say that, they're really talking. Seems like they're talking us. It's 100,000.
Yeah.
But not that I want to get down there.
No.
Right.
So I think the 223 that were projected to have in 2027.
It's just a nice
not bad.
document to have in front of you. If
And
you're
it'll
planning-
change every year.
If you're planning for revenue for the whole city.
And it'll change every year.
If you're planning for revenue for the whole city.
And it changes every year. So, like it already changed this year. I took the landscaping off because really the city can do the landscaping. It's their property. So why the library budgeting?
At the tail end of this meeting, I got some ideas on it for you to wait about.
Okay. Landscaping.
Oh, we're way beyond that. This will be as citizens of, well, you're not a citizen of Franklin, but you've been here long enough.
I'm a citizen of the earth.
You think, yeah, there you go. Okay.
So I just wanted to show you how that it had changed a little bit from my prior estimations based on information I was given last year and why it changed. So they're chunking up the projects is basically what they're doing. So there'll be another bid. There's just been
Okay.
But they're doing the important stuff. They prioritize. So any place that there was possible water infiltration, they're getting that taken care of so that there's no water infiltration.
Big expensive.
Yeah. Oh
Goes
yeah.
too far.
Yeah. So, okay.
They have discussed the capital budget and how it's changed. Are we going to then we would need to move on to the next item under business B, discussion of the 2023 library budget needs and strategies for future library budgets to meet the needs of the 2024 strategic plan.
And we kind of touched on that in this last conversation.
And we did, but we have the strategic plan here. The one thing I didn't do is I did not go through it and look at steps that we were going to be going after and what kind of additional monies do any of these project that we'll need.
Well, a couple of things that come to mind, well, maybe three things that come to mind. One, any type of marketing that we do, right? Whether that's going to be people or resources, programming changes, and then community outreach, right? If we're going to be doing things like, okay, now what additional resources or costs are going to be involved if I'm now going to be having, library resources here, like we're doing things with Milkman. Okay, or do we have a number on any of those things that are going to be kind of community facing?
I mean,
Because
it's
that's
not,
usually where dollars
yeah.
going to be involved. We're not
Yeah.
adding any more people, as the plan isn't to add any more people.
well, for example, if we made a programming and outreach kit, so we have reach kit, so we have like our pop-up tent and our table and
Mhm.
the things that we need to take with us.
Yeah.
That there's expense there. Expense in, if they're like little things that we give,
But the things
the
you're
marketing
talking
things
about
we
are
give away.
things,
Things that we give,
but the things
the
you're
marketing
talking
things
about
we
are
give away.
things that we do not have in the strategic plan. I don't remember seeing anything for a tent.
Oh, but it's in under I mean, it would be under outreach and programming. And,
We have a specific item that talks about setting up a tent at different.
No.
But that's what I'm talking about. What do we have here right now that we said this is what we're going to do?
Well, see, then that's the difference between a strategic plan where we started
Action.
out and the objectives that tie to it. So the stuff that they're doing that we evaluate every quarter, those are the things that are associated with like certain objectives. So we would have to put them on there. This is kind of like the skeleton of here's the stuff that we think is really important. Community outreach.
like, for example, marketing awareness, promote the library through participation in and hosting of community events. Well, there's a cost to hosting community events.
Right, and I guess that's what I'm saying. If we're going to say an extra $20,000 in the budget, no, I pull that number out of the air,
Yeah.
but it might be a good number as to what we hope to spend to bring the library to the community.
Mhm.
And that's what I was thinking. Do we have a number to attach to anything like this? It doesn't have to be a specific project. You're talking about using a tent. I'm talking
Yeah,
about
outreach.
we're going to do outreach, and that's going to cost, if we do it right, $20,000 to $25,000.
Mhm.
And then if we do a tent, or whatever, I don't know. We're committed to reaching the community to the tune of 25,000 or 20,000, 15, or whatever we want to do to meet the successes after. Yeah, commit to something so that we're going to do it.
So, like, what you're talking about is strategic goal number 1, programming. And we look at our objectives and we say, okay, these objectives, this will cost us $5,000 a year to our objectives.
Yeah.
A
And if you
dollar
see
amount.
something that's going to be newer that's coming through, right, for next year, you say, okay, yeah, we anticipate doing something like a tent or doing something like this. And I don't know if we have the cart. And I don't know if we have the cart before the horse here, where you meeting with your staff to say, what are you thinking of anything new for next year above and beyond? Understanding that it's going to need to be done, not necessarily with the existing amount of dollars, going to need to be done, not necessarily with the existing amount of dollars, but probably the same number of people.
Right.
So if we're planning something, we're either going, and it's going to take more stuff, is it going to be just dollars, or do we involve some outside group as part of it that now is going to be a cost? Some outside group as part of it that now is going to be a cost. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if some of those things are going to be okay, can you meet with your staff sometime between now and July to talk about those types of things for next year, in a time when you're heavy with all sorts of summer programming and things like that, understood, but maybe
We
that's...
can usually carve out an hour here and it's not like-
And while you're in the middle of doing those things, sometimes the good would be something that's when the juices tend to
Well, that's
flow.
why we were talking the other day about a tent.
Yeah,
It would
right.
be really nice to have a logoed tent, tent. Table and then a skirt with our logo on it.
During Franklin Night Out, what do we do here? Because we have all kinds of people here from Franklin community.
We're gonna have a table with library
Have we
information.
always had a table?
No.
Oh.
Mm.
Okay, good.
So that's why getting involved in like the parades and those community events, because we don't have a ton here in Franklin. Those community events, because we don't have a ton here in Franklin.
Are we going to give tours right away?
During National Night Out, or you
Yeah,
mean
during
just-
National Night Out, we got a whole bunch
Yeah,
of people here.
Sure.
And I don't know what people would necessarily want to see. I would.
Kids like to see the back room where the books come in the book drop. They're like always fascinated by that.
Okay.
So like, you can have kids grouped around in the book drop room, and then somebody goes around the outside and throws stuff in, and they just think that's it doesn't take a whole lot.
But maybe kids who don't come to the library often, they now get a comfort of, well, I can go in there. That's not so bad. You know?
It's a good place to catch, kids, families.
Especially if it's a hot, sweltering day. They get to come into the
It
air.
will, better.
Okay.
So putting dollar amounts is what you kind of want me to do.
Yeah, we've already kind of talked about with the capital theme, facilities management, right? So we've got that. Programming in your community outreach are going to really be the ones that I think are going to require some additional dollars, and that would, unless it's going to be permanent, that's going to be something that's going to come out of the regular operating budget as opposed to the capital one. Come out of the regular operating budget as opposed to the capital one.
Yeah.
Which could then get to your point, Alan, which is, okay, when you see that coming, then you go ahead and do this, and then you start doing more of your other stuff out of the fund balance.
Yeah.
So you can still do the things you need to do, right? And just have the stuff accounted for in the right place.
Yeah. The 10 out of fund balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Capital item, perfect.
Yeah, anything permanent that's going to be part of what makes the library our version of the Wienermobile. Remember when they used to have books, the bookmobiles?
Sure, and some libraries still have them. Racine still has a bookmobile. Due to the fact that the Racine Library is so far east,
Yeah, and you're talking a big community too.
there's a lot of library dead space in Racine County.
Well, you also community that's very much like Milwaukee, which is very diverse, and you don't have a lot of low income in Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of low income in Racine, which is another reason for bringing this stuff to the people.
Right.
So, no, I don't think we need a bookmobile.
Maybe might be a little.
I'm with Mike. We don't need a bookmobile.
Some libraries have, they don't have bookmobiles, they have book carts, so they have book bikes. They actually bike to like farmers markets and all that good stuff.
Bookshows.
Ooh, you have enough books, you're going to need a Harley to pull that.
There we
Yeah.
go.
You need motorized.
Yeah. I think the idea was like for someone who was like a children's librarian. Children's librarian could load up with a bunch of different children's picture books and
Yeah.
go do a story time and then
There
have
you
these
go.
books to check out. That's kind of the idea behind the book
St.
bikes.
Martin's Fair.
Thought about getting in there. It's a little harder than we thought because like you have to. Thought about getting in there. It's a little harder than we thought because like you have to go and ask permission from
Yeah.
the property owner. I don't.
Yeah, it's the people who are doing it do it every year.
So it was like, okay, that's a little trickier than we thought it was going to be getting into. But you still have the civic celebration. You still have the National Night Out, trunk or treat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's another big Franklin.
Well, when we do the holiday celebration, but that
Yeah.
can be expanded like some communities do, where they do like something like every Friday in December, where they do something, or that kicks it off, and then they do something all the way through there.
That'd be nice to do something like that in the summertime here. Janesville, Muskego had jamming on Janesville I think it was every other Friday, or maybe it was just one Friday a month.
Mm-hmm.
But that was kind of cool. Highlight the businesses along Janesville. Just went to that a couple times.
Okay. Okay.
So now that we have this big picture, what are we looking at? Getting the same amount of money that we had last year? Same?
Hopefully not less.
Now, in right on the beginning page here, you've got utilization percent. How do those affect the numbers?
This is Alan's.
What column is that? The 2021% of revenue?
I'm looking right here.
The top,
I'll read.
where it says wage percent, inflation percent, and then
Oh,
you
across the
project
top.
it.
I took the 2021 budget, or 2022, and then to get the number for 2023, I added 5% to anything that fell under the wage category, and 2.5% for most other
Got it.
lines for inflation. And then when you get to 2024, for wages, you're adding 3% to the 2023 budget.
Yeah.
Et cetera, moving on down the line.
Yep.
But it looks like from what's happening right now, I missed inflation by a mile. Because inflation is going to be 6 to 10%.
Now, can we assume that inflation is going to affect everything on here? It doesn't affect salaries. Doesn't necessarily. The weather affects and usage affects whether or not your costs of your utilities go up, unless the utility,
I think people are going to be expecting something because the CPI is going to be pretty high.
Yeah.
Well, the salaries, that's the cost of living increases, and they usually do try to use some kind of.
Number like CPI.
Yeah.
So we're probably light in a lot of these areas. But the nice thing about it is on the spreadsheet, if I go out there,
you change that, boom,
I
boom,
change
everything,
boom,
everything that's
everything
affected
changes.
that, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
We say, let's come up with what, at least for next year, what a better number would be
Sure.
for inflation percent. Are you thinking closer to 5
No,
or even more?
How are you seeing it, Jennifer? Okay.
Books, materials, and supplies.
And you're hitting the 5% plus. I know when
And
you
utilities is huge. Yeah.
utilities is going to be up.
Yeah.
Should we go 5% inflation across the board? Because utilities are liable to be more than 5%.
Yeah, utilities will be more.
Because utilities are liable to be more than 5%.
Yeah, utilities will be more.
Freight on anything that we pay freight on is going to be higher because cost of gasoline, diesel, etc. Getting people.
Doesn't everything just come through Amazon Prime?
We do get free shipping on most everything.
Then shipping's
We get free shipping on most everything.
not the problem. Then.
Yeah. Where we have freight was when we're getting like large deliveries, like the chairs.
Yeah.
There's freight.
Yeah.
There's freight included there.
Capital, not problem.
But yeah, that's.
So, okay. Stick in the ground and say 5%.
Yeah, I'm
5%.
good with that.
I'm
'Cause
good with 5%.
I don't think we really have a good idea. Really, until we get closer to 23.
I mean, the only thing I know for sure is utilities are going to be.
Um,
Subscriptions, I always said, we just kind of let the magazines unsubscribe themselves because we get every month we're getting this magazine's no longer published or this magazine is moved online.
Okay.
So, I'm just like, okay, we don't replace it with another title. We're just kind of our magazine, replace it with another title. We're just kind of our magazine
The
collection is just
the
shrinking.
imprint. Okay.
Mhm.
okay, but we can change 2023 to 5%. Do we want to talk about 24? About 24? Or just let that lie in as we get closer, get a better feel for it?
I think as you get closer, maybe you want to,
Okay, I mean,
just my,
but that's fine.
It would be interesting because it would be interesting because working in business, budgets were getting adjusted all the time, right? Sometimes you weren't even through January and you're already adjusting the budget for the year. Okay, so if with just all of the last 2 years and now inflation and things like that, does the city plan on, looking at, putting it operate different than businesses from a budgeting and an accounting standpoint? Where, no, Mike, they wouldn't do that because this is the way it works for city budgets.
Well,
Since it's a budget, I think it's a plan like anything else, right? There isn't anything that says that you are going to spend this or you're not.
when I did budgets,
Spend this or you're not.
when I did budgets as a controller in all the years with businesses that I was with, different ones, when we put together a budget, that was it. That was concrete. Because what I wanted to see was, don't go changing everything because things are changing. That just shows how poorly we budget. Are changing. That just shows how poorly we budgeted. Let's look at how are we performing against what we thought we could do. You would want your budget in the area of sales to be a stretch budget, and in costs, you would want it to be comparable to meet the sales goals, but again, a stretch budget to control the sales you try to push up,
Right.
and see where you shake out to the budget.
Mhm.
And I always thought that was more revealing. So we didn't change much at all.
Okay.
the only time I really remember much here was during COVID.
But I can tell you because he was in production control and he had marketing put together exactly what they're going to be selling. They made machine tools, so you didn't have a wide variety of things. You made 20 different things, and exactly how many we were going to sell every month. And there were some expensive items like computers that would go on those. And he ordered those computers to that budget, and we just kept on building inventory. And everybody's going, how come our inventory keeps going up? And I dug into it and found out what it was, and he got fired. I mean, you can't just put on blinders and go forward with the budget either when you're buying material and tying up dollars.
Which is why we look at the budget every month.
Yep.
We know what's going on. And it's to our dollars based on shift things around. Okay. Okay.
But you do know that when we change this to 5%, all the other years are going to go up because they're coming off of the base of the prior year, which 2023 is now going to go up, and then 2024 will go up, which will raise,
But it should.
snowball. Yeah.
This thing should mirror reality.
Right.
That's what we're looking for.
Okay. And the other conversations on
Well, I always think about, just like when we were talking about, talking about increases there. Is there anything else, Jennifer, that we can that we should be thinking about where, you know what? Because really, so is there anything in here other than like should we bump utilities up?
Well, for sure, yeah,
Okay, beyond the 5% that we're talking about,
probably.
probably.
That would be one that would.
Okay, so maybe we change. So there might be some raw numbers in here that we would change. What about from a personnel standpoint? That's the other big one. Okay, what's anticipated either increases or decreases in personnel next year? Do we, any significance? And that increases or decreases in personnel next year. Do we, any significance? And that usually comes from either the head count or I decided now I'm going to take the insurance, or I'm going to, now I'm going to take the insurance, or I'm going to, now. So people that came off now maybe they'd be coming on because of an addition to the family.
Yeah, well, it happened 2 years ago. Somebody went from single to family.
Yeah,
Some of those things aren't 100% anticipated.
understood.
Then there was qualified for Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
So, I always put my little feelers out at the beginning. Tara, I think you laughed at me last year because I put my little email out that says, I'm working on the budget. If any budget, can you let me know? And then I put underline in bold. You are not, and you don't have to share this with me. This is
Yeah.
because I don't want them to think
Now,
I'm
I
invading
know I
their.
was talking about insurance. A lot of lawyers, you have. When do they have to make the decision to do the switchover? If they do
That's the problem. It's usually after the budget is finalized. Our open enrollment period is after the budget has gone in.
Wait.
Like late October, November. Budgets, the mayor's recommended budget is already out there. The public hearing is usually in mid-November.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I got caught 2 years ago with the single versus the family coverage because in our document it was single coverage because that she had not changed it. She changed it after the budget was done.
Yeah.
So that doesn't. It would be nice if it was a couple months earlier.
Open enrollment.
Because then I would.
Just that most companies do it for a January 1 plan, and can't have it too early, because if you're the earliest one, then your spouse is going to have what kind of coverage? What are they changing? And does it suddenly get so much more expensive that you go, well, that doesn't make sense for us to do that. Wait till you see what he's got. Or
It's
she's
just
got.
unfortunate because it's always after the
Yes.
budget.
Now you're showing 4.5% increase. Personal services and employee benefits. And when you say wage increase of 5%, are you speaking specifically just of the salaries, the pay part of compensation, as opposed to the other compensation stuff like retirement and things like that?
Should all.
You see what I'm looking at, right?
Yeah,
That line where it says personal services and employee benefits, 4.5%.
Yeah, salaries were 5.6%. 5.6%.
Full time.
Oh, but that percent is what 22 was of funds coming in.
Oh, this isn't
Oh.
looking forward. This is
Got
looking
it.
backwards.
Okay.
This is what the increase was over 2020.
And then we take 2022 and multiply it by 5%.
Got it.
You should see that the difference between the 498, 647, and 523, 579 should be 5%.
Okay.
Oh, you got me on that when I
No,
started.
no,
looking,
no.
I go, what
Well,
the
you
hell
know
did I
what?
do?
And this is just good. Let me just make a couple notes up here. Okay, this wage increase, blah 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 blah. That's the increase over 2021. These others are, and then everybody can make their little notes like we did, and then now the conversation go a little bit easier.
Because of our comments earlier, I'm going to put another line up here. We have wages, we have inflation, make it 10%.
Look at our solar panels. Yeah.
Then we'll have to make it 20%.
Now I gotta find somebody to pay for it.
Payback in future years. Okay. Okay. It's all the big. Okay. It's all the big stuff. Oh, we got the capital covered.
Yep.
Covered.
If the labor covered,
We got the labor covered. We got the utilities covered, and then any stuff that we would be doing above and beyond what we are doing that would be of a decent size for programming or outreach or things like that. Maybe some of that comes out of capital. Probably not that.
A lot of it would come out of operating.
Okay.
it's interesting when you look at 2021 as a percent of revenue,
Yeah.
that the personal services plus the employee benefits are 71%.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, employees will get extra money from the city. And we're spending out of fund balance on all the capital items, which is another big expenditure item.
And that's why we got hit so hard with that compensation study.
Yep.
Because the library's so heavy with personnel. Service department.
Well, what's
School district, too.
interesting about that is that Rachel put something together to show, based on what the state says, for a community this size, all of the different things you ought to have from a staffing standpoint. All of the different things you ought to have from a staffing standpoint. I don't think there's a community in the state of Wisconsin that's staffed to what. So either they're way off,
Menominee Falls might be.
either they're way off,
Mm-hmm.
or everybody is operating at much lower staff. So that's kind of an interesting one. Is like it would be nice if there was something that you could go back to, where if you were going to argue to say, okay, we're planning on doing this, and we're doing this because that's kind of right, and we've been doing with a lot less.
Mhm.
And until that happens, so unless you have somebody that's done a study that shows this is what it is, and you've got basically everybody lockstep, and just like we don't want to be left behind, and then people are going to be going because we're not going to be able to provide services. It's pretty much going to be just
But-
dealing with what we
Yeah.
have from a staffing standpoint.
But if you look at the county, Milwaukee County, we're pretty good.
We compared to the county.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other libraries in the county.
We compared to the county.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other libraries in the county. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's Greendale, which is much smaller, so they have a much smaller staff. Proportionately, I mean, we're not
Mm-hmm.
too bad compared to the other libraries. Yeah. Then Oak
There
Creek-
was also something. It's always nice to talk about, for every dollar spent on the library, it returns X amount of dollars to the community. Now, some of that's going to be in materials, some of it's going to be in services and programming and things like that. I don't know how you come up with that.
receipts. You saved X number of dollars.
Oh, yeah. because of what you borrowed from the library as opposed to having to buy the book.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit of a deceptive number because if you couldn't get it, but it added value to your life, we're able to go out. We're able to go to the library, check it out. You have to weigh that. We have the money for it.
Let me ask you this. Do you have a ballpark number about what percent of the books that you have on the shelves in the library as opposed to donated?
Well, I could get that because when we get a donated book, we put a note in that says gift. So I can run a list.
It just be curious.
Mm-hmm. Now it's a little accurate though because we replace a lot of our books. Because we replace a lot of our books with better copies that are donated,
Yeah.
and we put gift in that. So
And one of the reasons, just kind of thinking, putting a financial hat on too, is if part of the stuff going out to the community, is that if you're an avid reader, share that joy of reading with the community, and when you're done with the book, bring it in.
Mhm.
So maybe that's a marketing thing that gets done where, kind of like, and we are especially interested in these types of books, public children books, blah blah blah. Whatever types of things. So if you definitely bring in what you have, we especially are really interested in these types of books. So if there's any places that we can, I would guess, simply because of what I do. There's an interesting book out there, just like I don't think the library has this one. Somebody in the library or a patron might be interested in a book like this. I'm going to go ahead and buy it, read it for me, and then bring it to the library. Bring it to the library.
I actually don't even have any books. You would think as an avid reader and librarian, I would have a lot of books at home. I actually don't because the library is my bookshelf and part of my home.
Well, the other thing is that
My bookshelf and part of my home.
well, the other thing is that accumulation of the problems with accumulation of possessions. Books aren't immune to those problems.
No, my husband has a collection because he has a reference collection
Okay.
of baseball books because he's
Okay.
insane about baseball and baseball books because he's
Okay.
insane about baseball and baseball stadiums. So that's what and history. So he does have books that he does refer to all the time. So we have a bookshelf. It's not like we don't have any books. But you would just think I read fiction mostly. I don't really have any need to hold on to it. If I'm on vacation and I pick up a book, then I do what you do. I drop it. I bring it to the library to donate when I'm done.
Yeah. And for those people that, like my wife, who is just like, if a map, a newspaper, anything is like, I don't want to read it online. I don't want to do the scrolly thing. I want to have reading in bed before bedtime. It's the book. It's not.
Oh yeah, I always have a book. I can't do the device thing.
Yeah. So, there might still be a good number of people out there that have books that maybe haven't thought about. Just like, and while you're at it, take a look at what we have.
Well, I can do a whole e-newsletter on what happens to your donated books. Now, when people donate the books, this is what we do, and we literally try to find homes for them. So if the library doesn't add them, we put them in the book nook. If nobody buys them in the book nook, we might take some children's books and put them in a little free library that has children's books. in them. Or donate them to a school library or So we try to find homes for the books as much as we can, unless they're real. So we try to find homes for the books as much as we can, unless they're really bad, which sometimes they are.
Yeah.
This would just be a sidetrack, but I probably should look this up. Libraries in the neighborhood don't jogging past don't seem to have a lot of turn. the ones, the few which may not be representative that I see.
I'm sure it depends on where. I know Kayla's playground, they're constantly looking for
yeah.
a new, because that's a well-trafficked area.
Yeah.
So I guess it just depends on the location of the little free library.
Where's the free library?
It's right there.
I've never seen
Well,
it.
it's a big area. Where's right there?
Well,
Is it like by
I mean,
one of the
it's-
covered areas?
I don't
You
remember
walk in and you
exactly.
go to the little kids area on the left, the bigger kids area. There are slides and things, and swing sets, and is it near a swing set?
I'd have to go look.
People kind of sit in like a horseshoe shape. Is it there and I'm just missing it because I'm watching the kids?
I'll find out.
This could be a
I'm gonna
recurring
stop and look
feature.
around.
What's that?
The little free libraries of Franklin, that could be a recurring feature in something. Years.
We do have a list there on Little Free Library's website. They do list them.
Oh.
But there are people who have Little Free Libraries that don't list them on that website. So then we put out a Facebook post saying, if you know of a Little Free Library, let us know so we can add it to our list. And so we got several more. So we do have a list, although people are putting them up or taking them down all the time. So we do have a list, although people are putting them up or taking them down all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to like redo the list, I think. But Laura was taking library promotional materials to the Little Free Libraries, and then we were taking books, and especially if they tell if they say on the Little Free Library list what they specialize in. We try to take books that fit their criteria.
I would think just not taking what you're taking off your bookshelf at home. Your little library is probably helpful.
It does. I mean, the Little Free Library on Watertown Plank, right by the Lutheran, I don't know what the seniors, the assisted living place over there.
Oh,
That
right on
stuff is
70s.
turnover all the time.
Yeah.
My favorite Little Free Libraries are the ones that they make that look like their homes.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, how can somebody be that artistic and creative? It's just amazing. They paint little roofs. I mean, it's like,
Okay, have we wrapped up the last item on the agenda? And then we're going to open up Mike's Pandora's box of ideas.
think. Yeah, so I think what you guys want from me is me to come back with numbers that match the strategic plan after discussing it with the librarians. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah.
That would be a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
so we can put that into the budget.
Yeah.
A good thing,
Mm-hmm.
so we can put that into the budget.
Yeah, and from a planning standpoint, even though it looks like, okay, here we are in June and now we're talking about 2023. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
start thinking about, and we want to have a solid of numbers in here. So if there's something that you've got in mind, or, just however your meetings go where you bounce stuff off each other and then you land on it and say, okay, what are we going to do going forward? What are the things we have love, and we're gonna save next year for the library. This is the new stuff, and this is what it's gonna cost. Cost is afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I can do that.
Okay.
Do you want your thing that you want to talk about?
After.
Okay. Then, okay. There you go. The second.
Okay.